This is very literary, it's very historical, it's very kind of no plot, just vibes. Um, can't say the vibes are good, but hello everyone and welcome back to another video. It's that time again. I have put on the Women's Prize t-shirt once again because it's time for part 2 of reading through all of the winners of the Women's Prize for Fiction. Part 1 is already up on my channel, by the way. If you haven't seen it, go and watch that. I read the first 10 winners of the Women's Prize for Fiction. As it was known back then, it was the Orange Prize. Overall, didn't have a great time. Didn't love any of them. I think some of them just weren't for me in terms of like genre and subject matter, but also some of them were just bad. So I do feel like for this next part, the bar is kind of on the floor though. I think like the only way is up. So hopefully the books will be better this time round. In this video, I will be reading the next 10 winners of the Women's Prize for Fiction. So in part 1 I did 1996 to 2005. This part I will be doing the winners from 2006 to 2015. I'm not going to be rereading any books that I have already read. This applies more to this video than it did to the last part because I hadn't read any of those books previously, but there are a couple in this part that I will have already read. So what I'm gonna do is I'll give like a brief review saying whether I liked it, whether I'd recommend it to like the best of my recollection, but I will also, if I have reviewed the book already on this channel, I'll just signpost the video where I talk about it then, because that will definitely give a more accurate review than me trying to remember like 1 or 2 years after I've read it, like any kind of valuable information. So yeah, I'll do that, and then you can go and like watch me from the past talk about that book. Also, like after I review each book, I'll look at the list of other books that were nominated in that year, compare them, see if there are any that I recognise, any kind of modern classics as it were. I feel like we might potentially be starting to get to more books that I have actually read. As we get further and further towards the present, there'll probably be some more books on the long list that I will have read, and I'll be able to like give my opinion on those. No luck so far. In the first 10 years of the prize, there were like no books that I read. All those I recognised, obviously, but like no books that I'd be able to like give an opinion on. So hopefully there will be a few, maybe, that I will have read in this next part, maybe. Anyway, I think that is it in terms of introductions, so I'm just gonna like get on with reading and reviewing. I'm also gonna try and keep it a bit more brief in this video because I have noticed in part 1 I yapped for ages about every single book, and I'm currently like deep in the editing trenches with that video and I'm suffering. So to like save me any more suffering in the future, I'm gonna try and like script out everything that I want to say and talk less and smile more. Who knows if that plan is actually going to work, because I do like to ramble, but yeah, anyway, let's get started. The good news is that I have already read the first book that I need to talk about in this video, and that is On Beauty by Zadie Smith. I finished this yesterday. This is a contemporary literary fiction, contemporary for the time. This won the Orange Prize in 2006. It follows a family in New England that is kind of on the verge of falling apart. Like, these people put the dysfunctional in dysfunctional family. You have a couple who've been married for 30 years. The husband is a struggling art history professor at a college, and the wife is like a nursing receptionist, or like she works for a doctor as like a secretary or a receptionist or something like that. And their marriage is collapsing. Yeah, it's not great, and they have 3 kids who are all growing up, gaining consciousness. They're all teenagers, and yeah, they're kind of getting to the point where they're like developing personalities and getting a little bit out of the parents' control, and they kind of have to deal with that. And then there is also a feud going on between this family and another family. The husband, the academic, has a little bit of a rivalry going on with another academic, another kind of art history professor who is a lot more successful, a lot more rich and famous and published and everything, who is also like British and conservative, like he would have voted for Brexit. And so those two families have a lot of tension going on between them, and things get kind of messy. I liked the writing style in this book, even though it does quite often get a little bit too flowery for my liking. It just kind of gets a little bit over the top with imagery and long words and everything. There are definitely kind of long bits of description in this book that I just kind of had to skim over because ain't nobody got time for that. Specifically, the sex scenes in this book, there are only a couple, really. It's not a spicy book at all. But like there is description in there that I just did not want to read because it's a bit kind of, I don't know, it's poetic but like in a graphic way, if that makes sense. Some of the characters were well written and kind of interesting. Like Kiki, who is the wife, she's a great character. I really like her. Levi, who's the youngest son, he was interesting as well. Howard was well written. He's the husband, but like he was also incredibly unlikable and annoying. I read a review actually just after I finished the book that said something along the lines of, I wanted to carry around a water bottle and spray it every time Howard opened his mouth, just like, no, shut up. And like same, hard same. Because yeah, he was annoying. But then you have the other characters, and it's quite a large cast of characters. So it's not really surprising, but the rest of the characters just ended up being kind of one-dimensional caricatures that didn't really have much personality. Like, you have see, this is how forgettable the other characters are. I can't even remember their names. You have Zora, who is the daughter in this family, and she was written with kind of a bit of juvenoia in the sense of like it's very much a person from an older generation being like, oh, these kids these days with their mobile phones and their TikToks and their Instagrams. Like, she's just a very typical self-absorbed teenage social justice warrior, and that is her entire character. And I kind of felt like there was a bit of a missed opportunity to have something going on underneath that facade, but no, that is just her character. So yeah, there are occasions when I can excuse characters being kind of caricature-y and sitcom-like. You can have plot-driven books and you can have character-driven books, but they need to be like one of those options. And the plot moves so slowly in this book that it can't be plot-driven. It has to be character-driven. But then you're like, what characters? So yeah, you just need to have like something to grab your attention, and most of the characters were just not it, unfortunately. There were some that were well written, but like because this was kind of a multi POV story, you get like perspectives from a lot of different characters. You just end up being annoyed by most of them because they're written to be unlikable, and that's fine. That's okay as long as you have something that you do like about the book. And yeah, I don't know. I really like the parts of the book that were set in London. I wish there were more of them. This is something I noticed when I read NW, which is the other book I read by Zadie Smith. I didn't love that book. I didn't really like it at all, actually, to be honest. But what I did like about it was the setting. She writes London so vibrantly. She paints a picture of the city through the people who live there. And it is just, it's so nice to read. And the same happens in this book. Like, you can tell that Zadie Smith loves writing about London because it's what she knows. But there just wasn't enough of it. Like, most of the book does happen in New England, and the descriptions of that city, of that location, just kind of paled in comparison. So yeah, that was a bit sad. I wish there was more going on in this book in London. So yeah, overall, didn't love this book, but I still think it was worth the read. I wanted to read more Zadie Smith for ages because even though I didn't like NW, I still felt like I could read another Zadie Smith book. I could like give her another chance. So I'm glad I did, even if I didn't love this one either. So looking at the other books that were nominated in 2006, we have Philippa Gregory, we have Helen Dunmore, who we saw in the last video. We have Naomi Alderman, who we will see in the next video. Curtis Sittenfeld with Prep, which is a book that I do not recognise at all. That's interesting. Gilead by Marilyn Robertson. We will see her later this video, I'm pretty sure. Joyce Carol Oates, Sarah Waters with The Night Watch was nominated. Hilary Mantel and Ali Smith with The Accidental. That was nominated this year as well. So yeah, a lot of books that I recognise, none that I've read, although The Accidental is very much on my TBR. Can't say I'm surprised that On Beauty won because it is so incredibly literary, and that seems to be what the Women's Prize likes in a book, especially like at this point in time. They like a literary book. I know that I said I wasn't gonna yap for ages and ages, and I apologise because I realise I have yapped for ages and ages about this book. So we're gonna move straight on to the second book for this video, which is Half a Yellow Sun by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I have already started this one. I'm like not quite 100 pages in, and I'm enjoying it so far. I like it. It's interesting me for sure. It's set in the 1960s in Nigeria, which is pretty cool, because like as much as I don't enjoy reading historical fiction, I do appreciate reading things kind of outside my knowledge, my comfort zone, and this is a bit of a blind spot for me in terms of like history that I know, and I wanted to read more books from Africa as well. So yeah, this is going to be good. It's a bit of a chunky one, and the text is tiny as well, so it might take me a while, but I will see you at some point when I'm done with my thoughts. Hello. Hi. Finished another book. I finished this last night. This is Half a Yellow Sun by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. This book is historical fiction set in the 1960s in Nigeria, which was a pretty tumultuous time politically. We follow three different people who are all kind of interconnected throughout the 60s, before and during the Nigeria Biafra War. We have a teenage boy who's working as a houseboy for a university professor. We have the professor's girlfriend, and then we have a white man. A white man? No! Who is like doing research on like the people of Nigeria for a book, who is a colleague of the professor, and he is in a relationship with the twin sister of the professor's girlfriend. So you get those three POVs kind of alternating throughout the book. Three pretty different lives and kind of perspectives on life in general. I gotta say, I thought this book's really good. Possibly the best out of all of the winners I've read so far. It felt like a history lesson and a soap opera rolled into one. Like, on the one hand, you have all of this political stuff going on, and I didn't know anything about this period of history in Africa. So like it was really eye-opening for me, and I learned a massive amount. But then you also have like the personal drama that's going on between kind of all of the characters that are involved in this story. Like there are affairs, there are children being born. Um, there are like issues with employment and money and addiction. So there was a really good balance between the personal drama and the political drama. You got a good taste for both. The characters are complex and developed, and the relationships between them are really interesting. Um, I think my favorite relationship was the bond between Alana, who is the professor's girlfriend, and her twin sister Kainane, and their like their kind of sisterly relationship was like super complex because of them kind of being compared against each other all of their lives. And then there's a lot of like family drama that goes down, relationship drama, and it just like makes their relationship kind of strained and then not strained as they come together during the war. And like, yeah, it was really interesting to read. I do still have a couple of criticisms, like the pacing was pretty slow, which is fine by itself, but towards the end it started to drag quite a bit, and that I feel like it should have started to pick up instead, to like start to build tension towards the end of the war, because like people are dying, a lot of people are dying, and like our characters are in real danger, but you're reading this book and it's like nothing is happening. So yeah, I think there was a bit of a missed opportunity to maybe build some tension there. I think the way that the book was structured, I struggled with as well. Like it's split into four sections. So you have section one, which is set in the early 60s and kind of sets everything up, introduces all the characters, etc. Then you have a section that is set in the late 60s, which talks about like the beginning of the war. And then it goes back to the early 60s for about 50 pages to like talk about some things that happened that are alluded to in the late 60s, like some big dramas and stuff. And then finally, you have like 200 pages back in like the late 60s during the war and at the end of the war. And I don't know, I think the concept of that structure was fine. I think it could have worked well, but in terms of like the execution, what actually happened was like for a lot of at least like the middle of the book when you're kind of switching between timelines, there was a lot of confusion about like what timeline are we in, what has happened, what hasn't happened yet, which characters are still alive. I just ended up being a little bit confused and kind of struggling with getting to grips of like what happens when. I felt a little bit like that meme of Mr. Krabs being all confused and the background being like blurred. Like, what timeline is this? It is definitely something that I got over, and by the time I was like fully in that last section in the late 60s, I had managed to like piece together the timeline, but there were definitely parts where I was pretty confused and a little bit lost. And so, yeah, the execution of that structure left a little bit to be desired, maybe. But outside of those two relatively small criticisms, I thought this book was really good. I can't say I enjoyed it because like the subject matter is so dark. Um, but I definitely appreciate reading it. I'm glad I read it. I should probably say a quick disclaimer before you consider buying this book and supporting this author. She has displayed some kind of turfy behaviors in the past. She's a supporter of J.K. Rowling, which is definitely questionable. I bought this book secondhand like 2 years ago. I don't know. It's something to consider. Maybe if you want to read this book, maybe get it from a secondhand bookshop like I did. Um, yeah, I don't know. I just thought it should be something that I say, which is a shame because this book is really, really good. But yeah, I don't know, something to consider. In terms of the other books that were nominated in the same year, we do have quite a lot of books and authors that I do not recognize. But we do have Arlington Park by Rachel Cusk, The Inheritance of Loss by Kieran Desai. I was wondering when that would turn up. A Concise Chinese English Dictionary for Lovers by Xiao Lu Guo, and Digging to America by Ann Tyler. So a few kind of well-known authors, well-known books. Um, I am kind of surprised that The Inheritance of Loss didn't win, but I guess because it won the Booker Prize the year before, it was already pretty well known. So it didn't necessarily need like the press and everything. I'm gonna take a little bit, a very very small break, um, from reading the winners now because I said I would limit myself to 6 books a month, just so I could pace myself so I don't burn out and everything. Um, and it's March. It is the 20th of March, so got a little bit of time left in this month. But I've read 6 books from the winners list this month, so I'm gonna treat myself to reading some other books. I actually do have some more books that I have to read this month. That is homework that is unrelated to this series. So I've got some arcs that come out next month. I have Few and Far Between by Jan Carson, which sounds really cool. It's like speculative alternate history set in Northern Ireland, and I'm really excited to read this. So that's going to be the first book that I turn to because it comes out literally like in 2 weeks, maybe. Um, and then I also have Starship by Kat Sebastian, which I'm so excited for. This is going to be like a fun kind of slow burn romance between 2 actors. It sounds like so much fun, and I can't remember the last time I read like a super fluffy romance. Besides the one romantic book I read for Fantasy February last month, I think this might be the first straight up romance book I read this year, maybe. So yeah, I'm definitely in need of some fluffy romance, especially considering how dark some of these books that I've read have been this month. And then finally, I have Survival Show by Juno Dawson. It's a great looking arc, which has been described as The Hunger Games meets Dream Academy. So immediately sold. This is gonna be what I read for the Trans Rights Readathon this year, which has already started. So I'm late to the party, and oh dear, um, yeah, I'm really excited for this. So yeah, and I also want to read some of the books that have been longlisted for the Women's Prize this year. Before the shortlist announcement, which is next month. They don't give you a lot of time to read all of the books before the shortlist gets announced. So far, I've only read A Beast Links Towards Beijing, which I really liked, and I would love it to win. I would love it to be shortlisted. But I also have a copy of Audition somewhere that I want to read, and I also want to read Moderation, which I have as an ebook, and also A Guardian and a Thief, which I also have as an ebook. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to those books by the time the shortlist is announced, but I want to make a start. Maybe. I mean, by the time this video is uploaded, the shortlist will have probably been announced. So I don't know. I feel like this might be redundant information, but who knows? And then when April rolls around in like a week and a half, I will come back to this video and read the next book, which is The Road Home by Rose Tremaine, which I want to say is also historical fiction. Yay! So I'm gonna enjoy not reading historical fiction while I can. Um, yeah, but I will see you in a little bit for the next installment. Hello, I'm back. It's not quite April yet, but I thought I'd get a little bit of a head start on my reading for the next month, the next 6 books that I need to read. I kind of went a little bit beast mode in the last few days. I was reading like upwards of 200 pages a day, and I managed to read everything that I wanted to read in the last little part of March. And I read that, and then I read some other books, and yeah, it's been interesting. I fear a burnout might be coming, but I don't know. I'm gonna take advantage of like this weird bit of motivation, momentum that I've got going on, and I figured I'd make a dent in the next few books on the list because I feel like the next few books are kind of the most intimidating for me. Like none of them particularly interest me. Some of them are super chunky. Um, they're kind of intimidating, and I wasn't really looking forward to this lot of books. But you know, I'm keeping an open mind. I'm still going to like go into them wanting to enjoy them, but yeah, I guess if you expect disappointment, you'll never actually be disappointed. So yeah, this morning I finished The Road Home by Rose Tremaine. This I thought it was historical fiction. It's actually not, at least not kind of in terms of when this was published, which was like 2007. It won the Women's Prize in 2008. Um, yeah, so it's set in like the early to mid 2000s, I want to say. Like everyone's obsessed with Princess Diana. There's no talk of Brexit. Um, it's, you know, people are still kind of recovering in Europe from the Cold War. We follow a man from Eastern Europe. His name is Lev. He's like in his 40s. Um, he has a young daughter, and his wife died. Um, and he leaves his daughter behind with his mother. Um, and he leaves his best friend, who's like obsessed with his car. And he migrates to England, to London, to find work and to be able to support his family better. And yeah, we follow his journey arriving in London and trying to find a way there to support himself and his family. And that's pretty much it. That's kind of the story. Like he obviously meets some very colorful characters on the way, makes friends, makes enemies, I guess. It is a relatively simplistic narrative. It's pretty easy to follow. Um, yeah, there's not really much else I can say about it. There were definitely things I enjoyed about this book. I did like the writing style. It appealed to me. It wasn't too flowery or slow paced or anything, but it was still nice to read. I just realized that like my nails match the cover of this book like perfectly. That was not intentional. So I did find it pretty easy to read. Um yeah, it did get a little bit dull at times, a little bit boring. Um but like there was enough stuff going on, I guess. I think my real issue with this book was that the author seemed to want us to root for Lev. She wanted to make him a sympathetic character that we were like wanted we wanted him to succeed, essentially. But it was quite difficult for us to do so when he didn't seem like that great of a person. I don't know. He does some good things. Like he is occasionally kind and selfless, but then he's also like prone to these outbursts of anger and violence. And like you can have a flawed character. I like characters that are flawed, that aren't perfect, that have issues, but they still need to be relatively likable, or they need to be sympathetic. You need to kind of understand why they do what they do. And you don't really get that in this book. It's kind of a missed plot line about his kind of his anger, his violence, because it's never really explained, it's never expanded upon. You just get these odd moments where he, especially towards women, is very unkind. And yeah, some of the stuff that he does is pretty unforgivable, I would say. So for most of the book, I was very much struggling to to sympathize with him, basically, to root for him. And when you don't have a sympathetic protagonist in a narrative like this, where the entire story of the book is about whether or not he's going to be successful, it doesn't make for a great read, if I'm honest. So yeah, I think there was something in the execution that it didn't really add up. It left something to be desired a little bit. I definitely wouldn't say this is the worst book I've read in this series. There was nothing like outright offensive or that I hated about it. But yeah, I don't know. Something just wasn't quite right, I guess. I would definitely check content warnings for this book before going into it. But yeah, I don't know. The writing was nice. The writing was nice. I wonder what other books were nominated in the same year and if I have actually read any of them this time. We're still to like have a list where there is another book that I've read. I don't know when that's going to happen. Hopefully soon. Okay, 2008. We have The End of Mr. Y by Scarlett Thomas. I did not know that was nominated for the Women's Prize. That's interesting. The Bastard of Istanbul by Elif Shafak. I like Elif Shafak. Haven't read that one of hers though. The Keep by Jennifer Egan. The Clothes on Their Backs by Linda Grant, who we saw in the last video. The Master Bedroom by Tessa Hadley. Lottery by Patricia Wood. The Gathering by Anne Enright. I think those are the only books that I vaguely recognise. Again, none that I have read. Yeah. So I'm going to move straight on to the next book. We go from The Road Home to just Home by Marilyn Robinson. I don't really know how I'm going to feel about this book because I believe it's like a companion novel to another book, which was also nominated for the Women's Prize when it was released, like a few years before this one, which is called Gilead. And this is a companion novel to that. I don't know if it's necessarily an outright sequel, in which case I won't know what's going on. Genuinely no idea what this book is about, so I guess I'm going into it with a completely open mind. I don't know. I will let you know what I think when I'm finished. Hello, I've read another book. This is Home by Marilyn Robinson. It's historical fiction set in the south of the US in, I think, the 60s. Like it's very kind of Jim Crow, sundown town, segregation kind of vibes. So yeah, probably like late 50s, early 60s, I guess. And the book is about two siblings from a big family. It's quite difficult to keep track of exactly how many siblings are in this family, but we focus on two of them who, in adulthood, have returned home to their elderly dying father. We have Glory, who is, I think, the youngest sibling, at least one of the youngest siblings, who has returned home with the kind of explicit purpose of caring for her dying father. And then there is Jack, who is the prodigal son. He is kind of the favorite of the father and has been his whole life, despite being kind of a bad boy, acting out, being kind of the black sheep of the family. He very much gets the most attention and the most pressure that comes with that. It's very kind of Superboy and the Invisible Girl vibes. And yeah, they both return back to this house and have to contend with reacquainting themselves with each other and with their father, who is a former reverend, very traditional in his views. Yeah, and that's the book. I have to be honest, I really, really struggled with this one. And I don't really know why. I think part of it might be the writing style. It's written in a way that's very kind of reminiscent of those much older classic books. It's almost like Dickensian in style. Like there are a lot of run-on sentences, long paragraphs, long words. Um, it makes it pretty difficult to follow. It never outright gives you a piece of information. It will like give it to you in crumbs or like give it to you in like a riddle that you have to solve. It never just says something directly, which again makes it very difficult to follow. I had a very difficult time at the beginning working out exactly how many children this guy had. Like it started out as like it named kind of six of the siblings, and then suddenly there were seven, and then I think it ended up at eight children in total. They just kind of randomly materialized out of nowhere. I don't know. So in a way, it was kind of a blessing that there wasn't much plot in the book because if you had added plot in, it would have been even more difficult to follow the book in a way. But as it is, there isn't really much that happens in the book. And yeah, I was kind of bored and confused at the same time because I was waiting for something big to happen and just it never really did. There was a lot of talking. There is so much dialogue, but no one ever really says anything. And actually, this book could have made a decent play, I think, because there is so much dialogue and it's kind of set out in such a way like pretty much the entire book is set in this house. So it could have made a brilliant play. I don't know. But as it is, I don't know. I think it is just a matter of it not being for me because I read a lot of reviews and a lot of people were very positive about this, saying it was like really really sad and really emotional and heartfelt, and I wasn't feeling any of that. So it's probably just a me problem. I think the book probably just wasn't for me. What is this? 2009, I think. Um. Okay. We have American Wife by Curtis Sittenfield. We have another Toni Morrison book. Is that three times Toni Morrison was nominated and she didn't win a single time? Crazy. Absolutely crazy. We have Blonde Roots by Bernardine Evaristo. Love Marriage by Vivi Ganeshananthan, which we will see much later in the series. Camilla Shamsi, who again we will see later. Burnt Shadows. Samantha Harvey, who wrote Orbital, which is a book I love. I haven't read anything else by her, but maybe I ought to. So yeah, out of like all of those authors, I've read books by quite a few of those authors and really enjoyed them. I haven't read any of these specific books, but yeah, I'm a little bit surprised that this was the book that won out of all of them. I don't know. I don't know. I guess it kind of does fit into that that kind of vibe of women's prize winners of this era at least before it kind of diversified into a wider range of genres and stuff. Like this is very literary, it's very historical, it's very kind of no plot just vibes. Um can't say the vibes are good, but I don't know. Again, it's probably just a book that wasn't for me. I didn't get it. Maybe if I sat with it for a little bit longer and really kind of dissected it, maybe maybe I would have an epiphany. Maybe I would love it, but I can't really be bothered to do that. So I don't know. Next up, we have got I think the book in this series that has intimidated me the most, the book I'm kind of dreading reading the most. This is The Lacuna by Barbara Kingsolver. Um, yeah, it's look at the size of that. It's historical fiction. It's a thick book. It's about a man. A white man. It probably wins the award for ugliest fake sticker
on a book cover. Like this is it's attached to the cover. You can't get it off and it is hideous. Like what were they thinking? The last time I read a very, very long book about a man, it was A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. And I have an entire video diary of my experience with A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. And it wasn't a good experience. So I'm scared. I am frightened. I think my strategy is just to go slow and steady with this book. I'm not gonna try and read as much of it as possible at once and burn myself out because I have very much been going going ham on books in the last like week or so. I have really locked in and read upwards of 200 pages a day, which is a lot and it's not healthy. It's not something that is sustainable. So I'm going to take this slow. I'm probably going to read it alongside a couple of more entertaining books, books that are more appealing to my tastes. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna. I want to enjoy it. Is the thing. I do want to enjoy it. I don't know if I am, but I'm still. I'm gonna look for things I like in it. I'm not gonna go in as a hater. I guess that's it. Wish me luck. I think I'm gonna need it. I don't know when I'm gonna see you next, but at some point I will have thoughts and I will share them. So I will see you then.
Can we just take a moment to appreciate my nails for a second? I've done them like mini eggs because it's Easter today. So yeah, I think they're cool. Hi, I'm back and I have finished another book. I thought this book would defeat me, but I defeated the book. This is The Lacuna by Barbara Kingsolver. Um, it's a thick book. I got this secondhand, and the person who donated it left a page dog-eared, um, and I decided to just kind of leave it there for reasons I don't know. But apparently, the person who donated the book DNF'd it at page 235. So safe to say I won. This is historical fiction. It's kind of a fictional biography slash memoir of um, an author called Harrison Shepherd, who um, grew up in Mexico um, in the 1930s, and then after the war moved to America. He was born in America. He moved back to America, and um, yeah, it's just kind of it's about his life. Um, he works for a painter called Diego Rivera, who was married to Frida Kahlo. He strikes up a friendship with Frida Kahlo. He also works for Lev Trotsky when he gets exiled to Mexico. He becomes a best-selling author. He gets mixed up in the Red Scare and McCarthyism. He's like very kind of introverted. He doesn't want to be perceived. Um, he kind of struggles with the mortifying ordeal of being known. Um, but because of things that happen in his childhood and because of the way that he was brought up, he was always kind of destined to be famous, and he very much doesn't like that. He tries to avoid it, but only ends up becoming a bit more infamous because of that. Yeah, he's an interesting character, honestly. I definitely went into this expecting to not enjoy it. And I think maybe for that reason, because my expectations were so low, I I was pleasantly surprised. I was surprised at how much I enjoyed this book. I liked the way it was written. It was very cleverly put together. I felt like I was worried I was going to be bored for a lot of it, but I think it's made up of like a variety of different sources. Like you've got Harrison Shepherd's journals, you have newspaper clippings, you have
letters, both written to him and written from him, by him. Um, you have notes from the person who eventually kind of puts all of this stuff together into a cohesive narrative, kind of edits the book. You have notes from them. Um, it's like a good variety of different places where you get information. And for that reason, the writing style is always quite varied. You also get like a sense of Shepard's writing style in himself developing as he grows, as he ages. He starts off, being quite childish because he is a child and writing in a fairly kind of simplistic way, but also in a way that like kind of erases himself from the narrative. Like he very rarely talks about himself, and he much more prefers to talk about the people that he associates with, like uh, Diego Rivera and Frida Kahlo and Lev Trotsky. And he's always kind of there observing him, but then kind of as he grows up, as he realizes that he is not able to kind of keep himself outside of the narrative, as he becomes, a well-known figure, a well-known author, and people start recognizing him and talking about him, he starts talking about himself a lot more because he knows that he can no longer stay out of the narrative. He is very much within the narrative. There are times when he himself is the narrative. So I really liked the kind of the variety in narrative style and, yeah, narration. It added a kind of freshness to the book. Could it have been shorter? Yes, definitely. Um, that occasionally it did kind of drag a little bit. There was a bit in the middle, kind of after Shepard moves back to the States, when nothing much really happens. And it was about halfway through the book, and I was like, am I going to have to sit through another 300 pages of just nothing happening after all of the excitement that went on with like the communists in Mexico and, Lev Trotsky being sent like death threats and stuff? Is there like nothing else exciting that is going to happen after the war? And thankfully, after a while, we started getting hints of like the kind of the McCarthyism and the Red Scare, which I'm not going to lie, kind of scary how similar the situation is looking in today's politics. But yeah, it did kind of have me a little bit worried in the middle, just the thought of having to sit through 300 pages of just nothing happening, because that was how it was looking. Thankfully, it didn't end up like that, but that was how it was looking. But overall, I did actually really enjoy this, and I had to say, I think this is possibly my favorite book out of the ones I've read for this series. I think, yeah, fuck it, why not? This is my favorite book that I've read so far in this video or the last video. It's my favorite winner so far. It won't stay that way because there is an absolute banger coming up in a couple of years. A hot new bombshell is entering the villa. But right now, this is my favorite. And also, it's quite reassuring because this is not the last we're going to see of Barbara Kingsolver. She did win the Women's Prize a second time with another book, which I will be reading in the next video. Not in this video, the next video. And if I hadn't enjoyed this book so much, I would be dreading that even more. So it's quite reassuring that at least I know that I enjoy her writing style. Okay, this one in 2010, and the books nominated alongside it, we have The Little Stranger by Sarah Waters. We've seen her before. The Help by Catherine Stockett. The Long Song by Andrea Levy. We've seen her before. Eleanor Catton was nominated. Layla Lamy was nominated with Secret Sun. She was nominated last year with the Dream Hotel, which I enjoyed. The White Woman on the Green Bicycle by Monique Roffey. Wolf Hall was nominated. That I'm not gonna lie, a little bit surprised that didn't win. A little bit surprised that Hilary Mantel never won the Women's Prize, actually. She is such a titan of historical fiction, and as we know, the Women's Prize love historical fiction. So, yeah. But I definitely see why the Women's Prize absolutely love Barbara Kingsolver. um, yeah, I enjoyed this book. I definitely did. Moving on, I am going to read The Tiger's Wife now by Taya Obret. I have no idea what to expect of this book. I don't know anything about it. Um, yeah, this won the prize in 2011, and I'm kind of expecting a very different vibe to at least the Lacuna, um, if not all of the other books that have won the prize. So it'd be nice to get a little bit of variety. I will get started and I'll let you know my thoughts when I'm done. Hello, I have just finished reading The Tiger's Wife by Tia Brett. This is kind of mostly, I guess, historical fiction, um, set in a couple of different time periods across the 20th century. Um, so the main kind of portion of the story follows a woman who is working as a doctor. She's from Eastern Europe, and it's kind of, I think, just after the the war that was happening in Eastern Europe in the 90s, and tensions are still kind of high politically. Um, like crossing the border is quite difficult, but she is working as a doctor. She's on a kind of volunteer mission to cross the border, go to a monastery that has like an orphanage attached to it, and go and take care of the children who are there, um, vaccinate them, do checkups and stuff. But while she is on that trip, she finds out that her grandfather, who she was very close with, who was also a doctor, kind of inspired her to follow in his footsteps. He passed away, um, far away from where he was living, actually quite close to where she was. Um, Potentially, he had tried to travel to meet her, but didn't make it. And so she kind of goes to investigate um, the kind of mysterious circumstances that he died under. And as well as this storyline, we also get kind of flashbacks to the life of the grandfather when he's a child during World War II, and then also when he is um, a bit older, working professionally as a doctor, and he comes across a rather bizarre, slightly supernatural case that he can't seem to wrap his very scientific mind around. There is some magical realism in this book. It's a little bit supernatural, which I liked. We haven't really come across a book like that that has won the Women's Prize so far. So I appreciated the kind of the slight difference, the fact that this wasn't completely rooted in reality. There's a little bit of kind of folk story going on, a bit of magical realism, as I said. I did, however, find this kind of boring. I think it is quite difficult when you are writing a book that has multiple timelines and multiple storylines. It's inevitable that readers will get more invested in one of the storylines, one of the timelines over the other ones. And for me, I was a lot more interested in the kind of the present day storyline. It's not really present day, but like the the more modern storyline following this woman, this doctor. So I was definitely more invested in that part of the story. To a slightly lesser extent, I was kind of interested in the um stories of the grandfather as a child, which includes the story of the tiger's wife, which feels like more of a folk story than anything. But the annoying thing with that is that the narrative of that storyline kept going into like the life stories of the minor characters in that story that like turn up. And I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really care. I didn't really want to know the tragic backstories of every single character who is involved. Annoyingly, the one character that didn't get a tragic backstory was the one character that I wanted to get a tragic backstory, and that was the actual tiger's wife. We don't like there's a reason we don't hear from her, get her side of the story. There's very much a reason for that. But it was kind of annoying the fact that we didn't really get a lot of information about her. So yeah, I don't know. I liked this. I thought it was all right. I didn't love it. Um, I think part of that is probably that it wasn't really for me in terms of like genre or setting. Um, didn't completely grip me, but I think it was well written, definitely. In terms of fellow nominees in 2011, we have the likes of Tessa Hadley, we have Jennifer Egan, we have Room by Emma Donoghue, and then a lot of books I don't recognize and authors I don't recognize. So it's nice that a lot of kind of not massively famous authors are getting nominated, alongside some quite big hitters. Um, that's pretty cool. It's also it seems to be getting a lot more diverse as well. All the nominations, which is also good. So the good news is the next winner of the Women's Prize, the winner in 2012, I've actually already read. Is this the first time I've already read one of the winners? I think it might be. And it is an absolute banger. It is, of course, The Song of Achilles, the GOAT, the OG. I have definitely talked about this book at length. Um, so I'm not going to say much about it. I believe I read it. I reread it um, in my Mythology May vlog in 2024. I want to say, I think it was a couple of years ago. Um, I reread it and it was just as good the second time round. Is this an accurate retelling of the Trojan War? No, no, it's not. Um, it has done irreparable damage to the reputations of both Achilles and Patroclus. Patroclus, in particular, he was very much not a soft, uwu, yearning boy who could not fight to save his life. He was a proper warrior. Some sources even suggest that like physically he was bigger and bulkier than Achilles. Like he could well have been a Chad. However, removed from the original mythology, the original source material as a book, as a love story, it is so beautifully written. It's so just full of yearning and just stunning lines. It's so poetic, so flowing. And yeah, it's lovely. It is heartbreaking. And I definitely credit this book with being at least part of the reason why I decided to study classics at university and go into classical reception studies, looking specifically at mythological retellings. Um, so like books like this, as well as the Children of Jocasta by Natalie Haynes, and the Penelopiad by Margaret Atwood, and For the Most Beautiful by Emily Hauser. Those are kind of my Mount Rushmore of of myth retellings, that kind of got me fully interested in the genre, in the subgenre. So yeah, this book will always have a soft spot for me, and it's not perfect, but I still love it. And in terms of other books it was nominated alongside, it was up against some quite big hitters. Emma Donoghue is on the list again, 2 years in a row, which is wild. That has that happened before? I don't know if it's happened 2 years in a row, but if it has, it's quite rare. Um, so that's pretty cool. Alice Smith is on the list with There Before There. The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern is on the list. That might be the first fantasy book that I have noticed be nominated. Anne Patchett with State of Wonder, um, Anne Enright is on the list. Yeah, a lot of quite familiar faces, I guess. None that I have read, but even if I had read them, I probably would have said that The Song of Achilles would have deserved to win because it is that book. It is so good. But because I have already read Song of Achilles, I was kind of debating whether to reread it because at some point I do want to reread it, and I have actually three copies, three different copies, three different editions, and one of them came in as a donation to the charity shop where I work, and it was half annotated, like the second half had just been left blank, and I think at some point I want to finish the job. I want to carry on annotating it, but I think that might be a job for future me, because I want to focus more on the books that I have not read. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna come back to it, but that does mean that I can move straight onto the next book, which won in 2013. This is May We Be Forgiven by A.M. Holmes. This book was so difficult to track down. Like usually, I think I all of these books I have seen in several charity shops before. This book I have never seen in a single charity shop. I had to get this online. I think it was via A Books, but even then, there weren't very many copies on sale. At least not for like a decent price. So yeah, I feel like this is gonna be quite interesting because most of the other books have become like modern classics, like bestsellers. This book hasn't really, it's kind of faded into obscurity. So it will be interesting to read it and to maybe figure out why that might be the case. Um yeah, I've no idea what it's about. I think is it about family? Yeah, I think it's about another family, another dysfunctional family. So yeah, it's chunky, so it might take me a while, but I'm gonna make a start and I will let you know what I think. Hi, I'm back with another book review. This is May We Be Forgiven by A.M. Holmes. This won the Women's Prize for Fiction in 2013. This book is contemporary fiction for the time when it was written, set over the course of 1 year. Our main character is a guy called Harry. Due to something that happens early on in the book, which I won't go into because spoilers, our guy Harry suddenly becomes a single man who is the sole carer of his niece and nephew, as well as their house and their pets. And throughout the course of the book, he finds himself in increasingly bizarre situations. I am feeling kind of conflicted about this book. I'm not gonna lie. I'm in two minds about this book because, like, okay, I'll talk about the positives first. The first 100 pages of the book were pretty good. The last 150 pages of the book were fantastic. So good. I really like the fact that the book is set over exactly a year. It starts at Thanksgiving and it finishes at Thanksgiving. And so you can see so clearly how much things have changed over the course of a single year. Sometimes for the worse, sometimes definitely for the better. So structurally, it was very satisfying to read. And it was quite entertaining. There are a lot of colourful characters that Harry interacts with. Um, all of the various situations he finds himself in were pretty entertaining, I gotta say. And the protagonist is oddly endearing, I would say. I mean, it's another it's another book where I was kind of surprised how much I enjoyed it, considering the book is about a straight white man. No! And you know what helped? I think my reading experience improved quite a bit when I started reading the main character as an unreliable narrator, because throughout the book, he does consider himself the victim in every single situation he finds himself in. And that got old so quickly. But we can see glimpses of a slightly darker psyche. underneath the, well, he's a political history professor, and he's kind of a bit bumbling and not really sure what's going on. Potentially neurodivergent coded, possibly. Um, but like his brother, for example, has really bad anger issues, and that is actually quite important to the plot of the story. Um, and it's suggested that this guy Harry maybe has a similar problem, not the same extent as his brother, definitely not, but I think he is definitely a lot more like his brother than he admits to others or even to himself. So reading him as an unreliable narrator who, is maybe at fault for at least some of the things that happen to him, I think that helped my reading experience quite a bit. It made the book more interesting, at least. However, it didn't help entirely. As I said, the first 100 pages, pretty good. Last 150 pages, brilliant. This book is nearly 500 pages long, so that leaves quite a big chunk in the middle that I found so boring. There is a lot of content about Richard Nixon, the president of the United States, really randomly. Like, Harry is, as a political history professor, he specializes in Richard Nixon. That is what he teaches and what he writes about. Um, so yeah, there's so much content, and frankly, I could not care less about this guy. I think it's a combination of me, A, not being the right generation, and B, not being the right nationality. Um, as a British person in my mid 20s, like this guy, like Richard Nixon, didn't affect me in any way. So yeah, he's never mattered to me, and I didn't care enough to really be invested in this Richard Nixon storyline. So yeah, that was fun. The book definitely could have been a lot shorter, I think. Um, if there had been less Nixon content, maybe maybe I could have bumped this book up to a 4-star read. Maybe more. Maybe more. You never know. Um, but as it stands, I'm kind of, it's sitting at around the 3.5-star mark at the moment. And even then I feel like I'm being kind of generous. But there still definitely was a lot to like about this book, and it is certainly not the worst I've read in in this series. So, yeah, that's it really. Looking at the other books that were nominated in the same year, there are quite a few big hitters. We have Elif Shafak, we have Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. I did not know that that was nominated for the Women's Prize. We have Where'd You Go, Bernadette by Maria Semple. We have Bring Out the Bodies by Hilary Mantel. Hilary Mantel getting nominated again for the Women's Prize, and she never won. Kate Atkinson with Life After Life, and Barbara Kingsolver again making another appearance with Flight Behavior. I need to apologize to Barbara Kingsolver. I was unaware of her game when it came to the Women's Prize. I knew that she was a favorite at the Women's Prize. I knew she'd been nominated for a lot of books, but I didn't know that she had been nominated for that many. It seems like every single book she's put out has been nominated for the Women's Prize. That's insane. And we also have NW by Zadie Smith, which I have actually read. This is the first year where I've actually read another book on the list of nominees. I have read NW by Zadie Smith. Unfortunately, I didn't really like it. So, um, I have to say, between May We Be Forgiven and NW, I'm gonna go with May We Be Forgiven for deserving to win the prize. I do still have some criticisms of it, but I was entertained, so that's all you can really ask for from a book. So, yeah. So that is another book done. We are nearing the end of this part of the challenge. We've only got 2 books left. I'm also, I believe, over halfway through the entire challenge. Um, I think I've read, I want to say 18 books now out of the, I think 34 that I need to read for the entire challenge. So yeah, I'm over halfway through, which sounds really nice. that it feels good that I'm kind of over the hill, because there have been points where the challenge has seemed never ending. I think we have gotten past the hardest books, the most intimidating books as well. Um, so yeah, that makes me quite happy. Moving on, the penultimate book that I'm gonna talk about in this video is gonna be A Girl is a Half Formed Thing by Imir McBride. This is a lot shorter than several of the very chunky books that I've read in this video. So hopefully this shouldn't take me very long. I don't know what this book is about. It's been a while since I bought it. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna go in pretty cold with a very open mind, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I will see you when I'm done. Hi, I'm back. It's taken me a little bit longer to make this final update than I thought it would. I was violently ill over the weekend, so that was fun. Um, yeah, did mean that I did get to do a little bit more reading than I would have done. Um, had I not been ill, I was reading when I wasn't like throwing up. So yeah, I finished another book. Hooray! So this is A Girl is a Half Formed Thing by Imir McBride. It's set in Ireland. It follows a young girl, kind of from like before her birth, really, through her infancy, her childhood, up until she's like 18, 19 years old, going into university, and her family, which is quite complicated, I would say. Her father left when her and her brother were very young. Her brother had cancer as a very, very small child, and that has affected the family to this day. Her mother is physically and emotionally abusive towards both of them. This girl is, as the kids say, going through it. So, yeah, she's just kind of telling her story, sharing her thoughts, um, as this very tumultuous upbringing that she has, um, is resulting in her being quite a vulnerable young person. She doesn't have anyone really looking out for her, and that eventually leads to some more terrible things happening to her. This isn't a feel good read. It's not a fun book. It's a very sad book. It's very bleak. I wanted to like this book. I appreciated the story and the themes. I do get what the author was trying to achieve, but I just hated the writing style. It's told in this very kind of stream of consciousness style with a lot of short, very short sentences, cut off sentences, um, unfinished sentences that don't make a lot of sense. There are no quotation marks, there are very little kind of paragraph breaks between dialogue. And look, I can get behind the lack of quotation marks. I don't mind that as a stylistic choice, as a quirk. I think, it's fine. It does make the book slightly less readable, but in, for example, Sally Rooney's books, I think it's okay. I When you don't have a break between lines of dialogue, that's when I start getting a bit frustrated, because like you cannot tell who is saying what. It's not clear. And so yeah, it took a lot to really parse out what was going on in the book, and what people were saying and what people were doing, and the story as a whole. I feel like I didn't even quite get it, despite me kind of reading over paragraph after paragraph. Like I was having to read pages a good couple of times to fully work out what was going on. Which, yeah, I don't know. So yeah, I would say don't read this book if you're not wanting to like put in a lot of work, a lot of brain power. It's not an easy read in terms of like having to decipher what is going on in the book, as well as the topics and the subject matter I would say massive content warning for child abuse and CSA and incest. Um, it's not pretty. It's definitely not for the faint-hearted. I know I said before starting this book like it's a small book. It shouldn't take me very long, but like it took me a lot longer than I thought it would. Just because it's heavy subject matter and it takes a lot of work. And I wouldn't necessarily say that it's that rewarding either in the end. So yeah, that was a book. Alongside A Girl's a Half Formed Thing, we have on the long list Elizabeth Strout, Charlotte Mendelsohn, Elizabeth Gilbert, Eleanor Catton with The Luminaries. That's a a pretty popular book. Margaret Atwood makes another appearance. Jhumpa Lahiri, The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt, and Americana by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, and Burial Rites by Hannah Kent. There are so many books here that would, I think, nowadays be considered modern classics. Like they've been out for 10 years. I think they can probably be considered modern classics. So many literary titans on this long list. In some ways, like I'm not surprised that this book won because it is it's very stylistically avant-garde. It's very unique in the way that it's written, and it contains similar themes to other books that have won the Women's Prize. So in some ways I'm not surprised that it won, but also when it's up against people like Donna Tartt and Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie and Margaret Atwood, yeah, I yeah, it's quite surprising. I'm not gonna lie. And then the final book that I'm going to talk about in this video, very briefly, because I have already read this book and talked about it on this channel, is How to Be Both by Ali Smith. This won the Women's Prize for Fiction in 2015. I talked about this book. I reviewed it in my Pride Month reading vlog in 2024. I want to say it was a couple of years ago. My memory is not great, so I would definitely recommend checking out that video if you want like a full review of the book. So in one half of the book, it's set in the present day. You have a woman who is grieving her mother and she is experiencing first love for the first time. She's, did I say woman? She's a girl. She's like 13 or something. And then the other half of the book is set in the Renaissance. You have a female artist who dresses up as a man, presents in a masculine way, um, essentially like lives as a man, basically, um, and is apprenticed under some famous artist. I can't remember who. It might have been Michelangelo, but I can't remember. And like becomes a really well known artist. Um, and it's like a massive secret that uh, they were assigned female at birth. So like it's a book about coming of age and gender and love and art. Um, yeah. In terms of my thoughts on the book, very briefly, it's not my favorite Ali Smith book. I think there are quite a few other books by Ali Smith that I have read that I enjoyed more than this. But yeah, I do still think it's worth reading. From what I can remember, it was a nice little kind of literary book that is good for summer. So yeah. And looking at other books that were nominated in the same year, I'd say that How to Be Both was probably the most talked about book at the time, but there are definitely more books that have come into the literary canon and become more famous nowadays. So books like Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. Low-key kind of surprised to see that on the long list because it's a literary sci-fi kind of book, and you don't see sci-fi books recognized by the Women's Prize very often. That's cool. Elizabeth is Missing by Emma Healy. The Bees by Lailene Poole, which I love, criminally underrated as a book. And It is the only other book that I have read on this list, but I would still say that it deserved to win. Outline by Rachel Cusk, which is pretty popular nowadays. The Paying Guests by Sarah Waters. A Spool of Blue Thread by Anne Tyler. And A God in Every Stone by Camilla Shamsi, who we will see in the next installment, next part. So, yeah, a few less kind of massive literary titans. So, again, not surprised that this book won, but it wouldn't be my personal winner from the list. And so, yeah, we've come to the end of another part, another installment in this series. We've done 10 books. And yeah, overall thoughts. I feel like this selection of books had a few more hits. There were definitely still quite a few flops, but a few more books that I'd say I would enjoy and would recommend. In terms of ranking the last 10 books, I've made a list. So in last place we have Home, because I genuinely can't remember a single thing that happened in that book. If anything happened in that book, and like it's only been a month, so yeah, last place. Ninth place, The Road Home. Um, Eighth place, A Girl Is a Half Formed Thing. Seventh place, The Tiger's Wife. Sixth place, On Beauty, which surprised me. I felt like I thought it would be higher up, maybe. But I did still have criticisms about it, even though I liked it. I did still have criticisms. Fifth place, How to Be Both, kind of tied with May Be Forgiven. I'd say like I rated them the same, but I think I enjoyed May Be Forgiven a little bit more, at least from what I remember. Third place, Half the Yellow Sun. Second place, The Lacuna, which so far is the first book to break into the 4-star territory. And then first place, obviously, The Song of Achilles, because of course it is. My average rating over all 10 books is 3.35 stars, which is a slight improvement from the last video, which I believe was a little bit less than 3 stars. So we are slowly but steadily getting more into my personal tastes in terms of books. So yeah, that's it really. Thank you so much for watching this video and getting to the end of it. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. You can also find me on Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, Storygraph. My username on all those platforms is @WithLivJones, which is the same as on here. Yeah, thanks again for watching. I will see you in the next video, whatever that video is. Bye.